Welcome to This Daring Adventure podcast, where we work on bridging the gap between where we are and where we want to be in order to live a bigger and bolder life. In this podcast, we will provide inspiration, tips, and skills you need to make your life the adventure you want it to be. Here's your host, mindset mentor, and life coach, Trista Gurton.
Hey everybody, welcome back to This Daring Adventure. So I think this is episode 151, and yeah, they're climbing up there, if you can believe it. I don't know where the time's gone, but we're going to keep going. So today we want to talk about discipline or regret. And this sort of builds on the whole concept of identity creation and making the changes that you want to make. And I took this line, I didn't take it, but this is a line from Jim Rohn, who said, "We must all suffer one of two things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret." And it's similar to the idea that, either you're going to have to face the discomfort of doing the thing, or you continue to live in the pain and discomfort that you're already in, right? Either way, you're going to be feeling that discomfort and that pain. So why not do the thing and experience that discomfort and pain instead of just staying stuck and doing the same thing over and over again and playing small? And so his line is somewhat similar. Either you have the pain of discipline or the pain of regret not doing it. And discipline has a lot of baggage. The concept, the idea, the word, it sounds hard. And we think discipline is something either that we have or we don't have. I'm not disciplined. And it doesn't sound like it's any fun, right? And of course, regret is very dramatic, of course, and that's very heavy, and it sounds like a lot. But I don't want to talk about productivity. This is not what this conversation is about. And it's not about working harder or forcing yourself to do things that you hate. But as I mentioned at the beginning, it is an identity conversation, because discipline is not necessarily something that you do. It is something you are when you've decided who you are becoming. And regret is what happens when your identity never evolves or gets updated and you're not creating what you want. But life is going to keep on going anyway. The days pass and we end up living the same day after day after day. And it's easier in our 20s and 30s because regret is theoretical, right? We think we have plenty of time. We'll figure it out later. We'll do it once things settle down. But now that we've reached this age, we're in our 50s, beyond, you have evidence. You see the cost of postponing yourself. And I feel like now, after so many decades where things sort of stayed the same in some respect, like we just had more resources and more time, and things seemed a little bit easier, even though maybe we didn't do it at the time. It just seemed like it was a little bit easier. And now things have changed. My body has changed. I don't have the same energy, all the things. So now it feels like there's this cost to postponing it or letting things go. And it's not dramatic, but we've had dreams that got deferred, talents that went unused, boundaries that never got set, versions of ourselves that we kept promising to become, create. And we land up being stuck, not because we don't have motivation, but we just continue to live in this same identity. It's easy. Our brain really likes it. It doesn't require any effort. It's safe. So why change? Right? Changing is risky. It takes work, it takes effort. And so we might have an identity that served us over the years of being responsible, being agreeable, being low maintenance, being good. And that kept us secure. But now things have changed and it's costing us. So we want to take a look today at how can we shift that? There is this idea that we want to change things, whether it's a shift after kids leave the house and you're an empty nester, or you're changing careers, or you just need a new job, or you're looking at retirement, or maybe there's just this general overarching sense of there's more out there. I want to do it. You want to start a business, you want to write a book, whatever it is, you want to make that change. You want to do something different that you haven't done before. So, what does discipline mean? Again, we're not talking about getting up at 5 a.m., being rigid and pushing into action. But what it is, in its essence, is self trust in action. It's this quiet decision. I do what I said I would do because I'm the kind of woman who keeps promises to herself. That's an identity. And it's no small thing. And it's not something that we're born doing. A woman with a solid identity doesn't ask, do I feel like it? Will this be uncomfortable? What if I fail? That's not the thought process. What she wants to focus on is, who am I becoming? What would she do here? What's the standard now? How do I want to show up? Discipline is simply alignment with that identity, right? You're making decisions from that place. And when you don't act in alignment, that's where regret is born. That's where stagnation comes in. Not because you failed, but because you abandoned yourself, you abandoned what you wanted. Regret is not about big mistakes. And here's what no one tells you is that regret doesn't come from the risks you took. It comes from the risks you didn't take because you didn't trust yourself enough. Regret sounds like, I knew better. I almost did it. I wish I had started sooner. And regret compounds. Not because life is punishing you, but because your identity stays frozen while time keeps passing. And that's why discipline feels so emotionally charged for women. Because discipline means choosing yourself even when nobody notices or nobody claps. Acting before you feel confident, before you know the entire how. And maybe disappointing others instead of betraying yourself. And not focusing on what others may think or say, but concentrating on what you want to think and how you want to show up. And choosing that intentionally and deliberately every single day. So this is not a productivity issue. This is an identity upgrade. This is a creation. This is you evolving to the next level. So identity, and this is why I've been focusing on this so much this year, because it is the missing link. And here's the reframe that changes everything. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your self-concept. And if you are seeing yourself as someone who tries, or someone who struggles with the consistency, someone who never follows through, then discipline will always feel heavy. But those are just thoughts. They're not the truth. And whatever happened in the past doesn't have to predict what you create today or in the future. And you can decide you are a woman who follows through, especially when it matters. You follow through when you've made a decision and say you're going to do something. Then discipline starts to become natural. You start to build that muscle. You build that habit. You rewire your brain, and it becomes a part of your identity. It's not easy, but it is possible. And that's why we talk so much about becoming your future self. And that's why it matters. Your future self is not about relying on motivation. She is relying on identity-based decisions. Your future self is someone who already has what you want, who already does the things you say you want to do. And when you see her that way, you begin to believe in the possibility and you begin to believe in yourself and you start to make decisions from that place. And it's not about how you feel today. It's about who you're being, what kind of woman you want to be, what you're creating for yourself. So I want to give you something tangible that you can use. Instead of asking, how do I become more disciplined? Ask, what is the new standard for who I am? And then pick one small daily behavior that proves that identity. I told this story before about the blueberry muffins, but it was such a pivotal moment for me because that was the first time I really employed this. I was the person who would have that second blueberry muffin. Without a doubt, I deserved it. I wanted it. What's a second blueberry muffin going to make a difference of anyway, right? But I decided in that moment that I was going to be someone different. And the person I wanted to be didn't have a second muffin. And yes, in the grand scheme of things, it probably wouldn't have made any difference. But I wanted to make that shift. I wanted to eat more healthfully. I wanted to lose a little bit of weight. I wanted to do things differently. And I had to start there. And that was the first shift, like slowing things down. Just being like, wait, pause. What am I doing here? What do I want to do? Who is the person that I'm becoming? I knew I wanted to be the person who didn't have second muffins. Simple, silly, I know, but it just takes that one shift and you see that it's possible. And one day it's blueberry muffins, and then the next day it's something else, and it's next something else. And that's how you build. So it's one small behavior. It's not 10, it's not a whole life overhaul. One. And you're making decisions and you're keeping promises to yourself and you trust yourself. You're starting to build the trust. And then that discipline becomes an identity reinforcement. And every time you follow through, you're not just checking a box. And I love checking a box, let me tell you, but you are becoming somebody new. So let me leave you with this. Discipline isn't about control. It's not about being hard on yourself. And it's definitely not about fixing what's wrong with you. You don't need more discipline. You just choose discipline. And it's self-respect in action. And it's that self-respect that is the foundation of a strong relationship with yourself. Most people don't realize this, but the relationship you have with yourself is the most important relationship you will ever have. And it is built the same way every other relationship is built. Consistency, follow through, knowing that when you say something matters, you actually show up for it. And we will show up for other people, but how often do we show up for ourselves? And every time you say, I'll start tomorrow, I'll come back to this later, I'll do it when I feel more comfortable. Maybe I'm just not made for this, maybe it's too late. And then you don't do it. You're not just delaying a task, but you're quietly teaching yourself that you don't trust yourself. And that erosion of self-trust is what makes discipline feel heavy and hard, because you're trying to act without believing in yourself. And when you follow through, especially in small, quiet ways, you're sending yourself a different message. I have my own back. And that can change everything. And so, this is why discipline isn't about willpower, but it's really about rebuilding trust with yourself. And when self trust grows, you keep promises to yourself. You do what you said you're going to do. You stop negotiating away your own needs and what you want. Self respect grows when you honor your time, you honor your energy, and you act like your life really matters. You act like what you want actually matters. And when self trust and self respect are present, regret loses its grip. Because regret isn't really about missed opportunities. It's about the pain knowing that you didn't show up for yourself when you could have. You let yourself down. At this point, you know what it costs to abandon yourself. And you know what's possible when you stop doing that. So if you're asking yourself here where to start here. Not with motivation, not with a massive plan, but with one small act of self respect today. One promise kept, one decision honored, one moment where you choose to trust yourself. And that's how you build a better relationship with yourself. That's how you create a new identity. Make those choices, make those decisions. And that's how discipline becomes lighter and it becomes more interesting and more compelling because you want to see what's possible, because you are living in alignment with the person you want to become and the life you want to create. All right, so get out there. Think about who you want to become. Think about the identity you're creating. And find those moments today where you can make a decision, make a commitment to yourself, and follow through. I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.